After being away for several months, I came back to discover that the house I grew up in was now on the market. This house, filled with memories of my childhood, was being sold without my knowledge or approval. My husband, Stephen, and his mother, Betty, were behind this decision. They both came from less wealthy backgrounds and viewed the house merely as a financial asset, overlooking the sentimental value it held for me. When I left, I believed my home would be respected in my absence. Instead, I returned to betrayal. Not only had Stephen and Betty sold the house, but they seemed to relish their deceit, fully aware of the emotional and legal implications of their actions. This wasn't just a breach of a legal agreement, it was a violation of the deep emotional bond one had with the house. It wasn't merely a structure, it was a place full of love and memories, a connection to my parents who had retired and moved elsewhere. What made this even more painful was the fact that my parents had welcomed Stephen into our family with open arms. Despite the differences in our financial backgrounds, my family, being business owners, had supported our marriage wholeheartedly, never making Stephen feel inferior. Now, in the wake of this betrayal, I see the magnitude of my parents' generosity when they decided to gift me the house. It was meant to be a place of security for our future, a symbol of their love and trust. Stephen and I had been together for over 7 years, building a life as equals, regardless of our financial differences. But now, the core values of our marriage were being tested. As the rightful owner of the house, I'm left to manage the legal and emotional fallout from this devastating sale. The trust between me, Stephen, and Betty has been shattered. As I face the consequences of their actions, I'm left wondering what the future holds for our relationship and the home that once represented our shared dreams. Stephen and I had decided not to have children, and as time went on, the large family home started to feel too big for just the two of us. I had already begun talks with a real estate agent, though the official transfer of ownership from my parents hadn't been finalized. During one hectic morning, I reminded Stephen to complete some paperwork. "Stephen, this form needs to be submitted today, or we won't make the deadline," I urged. He shrugged me off with a dismissive wave. "Just fill it out yourself. You're making a big deal out of nothing, it'll be fine." His indifference stung. This wasn't the considerate man I had married. Recently, he had grown increasingly detached, leaving important tasks to me. I found myself shouldering more responsibilities, not out of partnership but to avoid conflict. This dynamic made me feel more like a caretaker than a wife. Despite these growing tensions, we moved forward with the sale of our current home and even picked out a new, smaller place, but doubts about our future together weighed heavily on my mind. Then, one day, I received terrible news. My parents had been in a serious car accident. They would need months to recover, with the first 3 requiring constant care. I rearranged my work schedule and informed Stephen that I'd be staying with them to help. Stephen's response was disturbingly indifferent. "All right, that's your decision," he said, his tone cold and unconcerned. I couldn't help but worry about how he would manage on his own. He barely handled simple chores like laundry or taking out the trash. Reluctantly, I turned to Betty for help. I asked if she could keep an eye on Stephen while I was away, hoping she could help him manage. "Don't worry, Margaret, I'll take good care of him while you're busy playing nurse," Betty said with a hint of sarcasm. It was clear she didn't think much of my responsibilities or my parents. Though irritated by her tone, I had no choice. With my bags packed, I left to care for my parents. The 6 months flew by, filled with hospital visits and long days helping them recover. My contact with Stephen was minimal, but I was confident I'd done the right thing by staying with my parents. Once they were stable, I prepared to return to my life. Driving back to our town, I was eager to settle back into some normalcy, but as I approached the house, I was shocked to see a for sale sign on the lawn. Confused, I called Stephen, who casually told me he had sold the house and moved back in with his parents. "I handled everything while you were gone," he said, his tone devoid of emotion. Stunned, I drove to his parents' house, only to find my belongings piled up at the front door. As I tried to make sense of it, a contractor arrived, exchanged paperwork with Betty, and started loading my things into his truck. Stephen appeared soon after, looking unusually pleased as he and Betty stood near a luxury car I didn't recognize, counting a large sum of cash. The sight was surreal, with a mix of shock and anger. I confronted them, demanding, "What is happening here?" Betty responded with a dismissive chuckle. "I took care of that clutter you call your house. You've always been too well off to know how to manage things properly." Her words stung, but she continued, "You've been neglecting your duties as a wife, putting your parents first. Poor Stephen has suffered enough, because of you. I even told him to divorce you. Stephen then turned to me coldly and said, the house is in your name now, which Betty used as leverage to sell it. You told me I could do what I wanted, and I did. He held up a real estate contract signed over a month ago. Betty smiled smugly, as though she had won some twisted game. The betrayal wasn't just the sale of the house, it was the realization that Stephen and Betty had been plotting behind my back. In the midst of the chaos, I gathered myself and said firmly, but the house should already be under contract with another agent. Any sale without my signature is illegal. You've breached the contract, and now the real estate company will come after you for compensation. Betty, unfazed, replied, Stephen told me you went ahead with another agency without consulting him. That's not my problem. I simply handled it how you always do, on your own. Her disregard for the legalities of the situation was infuriating. If compensation is due, it's on you, she added indifferently. It's your house, after all. I turned to Stephen, hoping for some form of understanding, but his expression mirrored Betty's smugness. This is revenge, he said with a smirk. You've always looked down on me because I didn't grow up with money. I've felt like an outsider in your world. You and your parents probably laughed behind my back. His bitterness spilled out as he continued. Being poor isn't fun, is it? Now I'm going to show you what money can do. I'm done being the only one struggling. He handed me divorce papers, filled out except for my signature. I could have had Mom take care of this, but where's the fun in that? Their glee was palpable, as if they were savoring a victory, but as their triumph grew, I felt my anger fade, replaced by a quiet realization of their blunder. You think you've won, but the house isn't mine anymore, I said calmly, a plan already forming in my mind. You've made a huge mistake, and it's going to come back on you, not me. I pulled out a document from my bag, unfolding it in front of them. This is the official registry for the house. Remember that conversation we had the other day? The ownership was transferred to Stephen's name last week, right when you decided to sell it. Betty's face turned pale with confusion. I didn't hear anything about that. Of course not, I replied. I tried to confirm with you, but you barely listened. You told me to handle everything, so I did. You didn't even remember the details. Stephen's expression shifted from smugness to disbelief as he stared at the document. Betty, visibly shaken, asked, what does this mean? I continued, this was my parents' plan all along. They loved Stephen like their own son and trusted you. Betty, they thought giving us the house was a gift, a symbol of their respect for how you raised Stephen. I let the weight of my words settle, but now, you've both betrayed that trust. What you've done is not just a betrayal to me, but to my parents' intentions. Stephen and Betty stood there, stunned, their faces drained of color as they grasped the gravity of their actions. You're dealing with two real estate companies now, both of which will demand compensation for breach of contract. I'll handle my end with my agency, but you'll have to sort out your own mess. I looked at them, disappointment clear in my voice. This is on you now. I can't believe the agency accepted such a rushed explanation and proceeded with the contract. If you had concerns or opinions, you should have been honest with me instead of resorting to trickery. It's not merely about financial status, it's about being truthful and respectful. My frustration boiled over as I confronted Stephen and Betty, raising my voice. This is not about wealth, it's about the emptiness in your hearts, I stated firmly. In the heat of the moment, I pulled out my phone, ready to call the real estate agency and report the deceit. Just as I was about to dial, Stephen interrupted me, his tone desperate. Hold on, this isn't what I wanted. I was just upset that you left. Let's work through this together as a couple, he suggested, sounding naive. I know, I could buy the house that's currently for sale. Just call the old real estate agency, and we can pretend this never happened. You're wealthy enough to afford that, right? Betty, who had been quietly simmering beside him, interrupted. Her fear of losing everything shifted her loyalty. Stephen, are you really turning against me now, after everything I've done for you? I can't believe you'd prioritize your wife over your mother. What a selfish son. Her words dripped with irony and hurt. I retorted, oh, but according to you, Betty, putting parents first is shameful, right? So you should be grateful that Stephen isn't scummy. You should take pride in him for being a good son. Betty fell silent, caught in her own hypocrisy. Seizing the moment, Stephen tried to appeal to me. Margaret, you're the most important person in my life right now. I promise I'll change and do better. Please don't misunderstand me. His words didn't sway me. No one is talking about forgiveness, I shot back, brushing his hand away when he attempted to hold mine. I was fed up with his excuses and lack of accountability. I'm exhausted by your laziness, Stephen. Whenever something goes wrong, you blame others and expect them to fix it. How can I trust that you'll change? I made my stance clear and harsh. I'm not your assistant or servant. As an adult, you need to take responsibility for your actions. You'll pay for this for the rest of your life, both you and Betty. With determination, I took the divorce papers from his grasp, signed my name right then, and walked away, leaving them in stunned silence. After that chaotic day, the divorce process, while complicated, eventually concluded. Ironically, Stephen and Betty later sued my family, claiming my parents had deceived them and demanded compensation. The ordeal wasn't over, but I was prepared to face whatever challenges arose with a clear conscience and a firm resolve to uphold my family's integrity. As anticipated, Stephen and Betty lost their lawsuit. Their deceitful tactics backfired, leaving them financially liable for significant compensation to both real estate agencies involved. The fallout from their actions spiraled into a blame game, suggesting a long and troubled future for them. Meanwhile, my employer generously arranged for me to work remotely, allowing me to be with my parents during their recovery. Returning home has been a grounding experience. Each day, we navigate their rehabilitation together, sharing small yet meaningful gestures of care. Your bath is ready, my father says, a simple kindness after a long day. Thank you, I respond. I'll wash the dishes, so you can relax first. You must be tired after today's rehab. No, you go first, Margaret, he insists. I'll clean the tub later. Take a moment for yourself. Living with my parents again, I witness the unwavering support they give each other as they recover from the accident. It's in these quiet, everyday moments that I've realized what was fundamentally missing in my marriage to Stephen: mutual respect and consideration. Initially, the divorce brought sadness and frustration, yet, watching my parents has given me a clearer understanding of what a loving and supportive relationship looks like. I've learned valuable lessons about respect, communication, and the kind of partnership I desire if I ever choose to open my heart again. I'll be much more cautious, armed with the insights I've gained from this experience. I'm determined not to add any more stress for my mom and dad. Instead, I'm focused on applying these lessons as I move forward and expressing my gratitude to them. This new chapter at my parents' home isn't just about recovery, it's about starting afresh, strengthened by the wisdom gained from past experiences and a renewed appreciation for the family that has always stood by me. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video, and stay stunned.